Call the meeting to order, the special meeting of Florence City Council. If we could stand. We pray for the wisdom to make decisions that are beneficial to the people represented here. Empower us to speak honestly, reflect wisely, and vote with integrity. We seek your guidance tonight. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carroll.
Present.
Ms. Chambers.
Here.
Mr. Wynn.
Here.
Ms. Kemper. Ms. Wingo.
Here.
Mr. Osborne. Mayor, we have a quorum.
We have approval of the minutes of the special meeting of November 19th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Carroll?
Second.
Second, Ms. Wingo. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is second reading, 016-2024. It's an ordinance annexing certain territory consisting of a parcel of approximately 18.8473 acres located on the east side of Gunpowder Road adjacent to the city limits. This is BBB Developers LLC and KPD Holdings LLC property. The effect of this ordinance is to annex an approximate 18.8473 acre tract located on the east side of Gunpowder Road and to establish zoning for this parcel as Urban Residential 1 UR1. The full text of ordinance 016-2024, including its exhibits, is available for examination in the office of the city clerk, City of Florence, Kentucky, 8100 Ewing Boulevard, during regular office hours. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Wingo, second by Mr. Wynn. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Mr. Wynn.
Yes.
Ms. Wingo.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 4-0.
And just for the viewing public, we have discussed that ordinance multiple times. This was a second reading, so. Next is discussion of interlocal cooperation agreement between the Housing Authority of Covington, Kentucky and the City of Florence, Kentucky. Mr. Hunter, are you going to speak on this?
Sure. So this interlocal agreement authorizes the Covington Housing Authority to accept transfer from the City of Covington, their HCV, which is a Housing Choice Voucher Program, formerly known as Section 8, from the City of Covington, so that Covington Housing Authority is taking over that. You might ask yourself, why are we involved with this? Well, it's because it was managed by the Home Consortium, which we are a part of. Because we're part of the consortium and we're moving that aspect of it and giving it to the Covington Housing Authority, we have to sign an interlocal agreement authorizing the consortium to take this action. Does not impact the City of Florence. None of these credits or taxes or how that program is managed will even bleed over into Boone County. Boone County has their own separate program for how they manage those funds. So that is it.
Any questions?
I was just wondering off the subject, since we have started the home project, how many people have been able to take advantage of it?
One, a lot of it has to do with housing stock. It's something we continue to look at and work on. But we did get one. That's one more person in an owner-occupied home.
A veteran?
Veteran on top of that. And to my knowledge, he's still in the house making his payments. It's worked out really well. Need more housing stock in the appropriate price range, which is a part of a much broader conversation that we've all been participating in the last year.
Any other questions? All right, next is discussion of, reappointments to the Florence Board of Adjustment and Zoning Appeals. This is two reappointments, one for Lois Evans and one for Dwayne Frolicker. Is there any questions? Okay. And next would be a discussion of appointment to the OKI Board of Directors. Gary Wynn has graciously served in this capacity for a little while now and does a great job for us, and we appreciate his extra effort that he makes to do that for us, and so he has agreed to serve again. So is there any other questions or discussion about that?
No. Yep, Mayor, I'll just say, all three of them have done a good job for us. They worked hard on these special boards, and we appreciate all the work that they do.
Absolutely. All right, next is discussion considering, do you want to read this, or do you have? Okay. Resolution of R 24029A of the Boone County Planning Commission relating to the adoption of zoning text amendments to the Boone County zoning regulations applicable to the Boone County Fiscal Court and legislative body of the City of Florence, Walton, and City of Union as members of the Boone County Planning Unit, and recommend that these zoning text amendments be considered for the enactment to regulate electric vehicle charging stations and gasoline filling stations as authorized uses, open to the public as codified in KRS 100.326, which took effect on July 15, 2024, and other applicable law within the Boone County Planning Unit for Boone County, Kentucky, subject to the recommended terms and provisions set forth in the recommended zoning text amendments set forth in the Technical Design Review Committee report, and providing this recommendation be forwarded to the Boone County Fiscal Court and cities comprising of the Boone County Planning Unit for consideration by their legislative bodies. Mr. Hunt.
Yes, ma'am. So as my memo outlined, this text amendment is necessitated by state law change that took place. And if you've been following any of the KLC stuff over the last year, this is a bill that we adamantly opposed. It is a violation of our home rule status. Anytime state legislation gets involved with amending KRS 100 and saying that there's a one-size-fits-all approach to how we should do zoning, it's a very dangerous slippery slope. We lost this one. We are required to make these text amendment changes. So really, if you read through that big old packet, this is really what it boils down to. It's two definition changes. So we have to change the definition of electric vehicle charging station, and really what the wording they came up with states that it has the same meaning as KRS 138-477. I think they did that on purpose because chances are that definition could change time to time, and we don't have to repeat this text amendment process. But to take it a little further, electric vehicle charging station public has the means any place accessible to the general public vehicular traffic where electric power may be used to charge a battery and other storage device of a licensed electric vehicle. That's one definition that was changed. The other one is that retail filling station, we had to change the definition in our zoning regulations to meet KRS 138-210. And that's basically, it was kind of very much similar, but it says any place accessible to the general public for vehicular traffic where gasoline or special fuel is or may be placed in a fuel supply tank for a licensed motor vehicle. I guess a good example of this is Meyer. So Tesla, that's a big charging station. It's probably the most well-known charging station that's out there. That is within the Houston-Donaldson overlay district. For years, there's been multiple attempts to get gas stations on the Houston Road overlay, and there's lawsuits settled in areas. There's a bunch more stuff to it than what we'll get into. But it has gotten denied in a few spots. It's been approved at Sam's. But Meyer came in with the charging stations, and that got approved. It went long range. He went through the same process you would have to get fuel pumps, but the electric vehicle charging stations did get approved. I think what the General Assembly was trying to stay with it, or make a statement with this change, is that, hey, you're going to allow Tesla to go there. You have to allow fueling stations to go there as well. You know, from my perspective, it's a totally different use category. When you go in to charge your car, you're not in and out in 5 minutes. There's not as much traffic turnover. There's not as much stacking. Chances are you're getting out of your vehicle when you're walking and you're shopping. So we view those entirely different than a gas station. Just reviewing plans for one the other day, 6,000 square foot gas station. They do 7,500 trips a day. So they're not compatible. I know the legislators try to say they are compatible. You do have to allow it, but blatantly they are not. So we do have a little bit of teeth with this, even after it's changed from a traffic count perspective, and that is how we plan on approaching it and managing it. We cannot amend this text, nor would I recommend it to make it something maybe more favorable to our liking. We've opted, the Florence P&Z Committee opted to go with what state law stated. That's the best course of action, and that's where we're at with it.
Any discussion, questions?
Do charging stations have to have restrooms?
They do not. They do not. It's not a requirement.
Do gas stations?
I don't, let's see here. I've been to gas stations with and without bathrooms. You probably get more to a health department thing if they're serving food and different things like that. From a zoning perspective, Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't really get into, do you have to have a bathroom or not, right? Yeah.
Do you hear that? It's a building issue, and not zoning.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Do you, I'm sorry if I missed it, do you have the bill number?
It was House Bill 5,
In here.
was it 515, 511?
Have to go back in the
I do
packet.
know, it was in the front of this packet.
581,
581. I know the governor vetoed it and was overturned
turned by the
by
legislature.
the legislators, and they pushed it through.
Do you have the roll call on that?
No, I don't have the roll call on it. I'd say it went majority Republican vote if I had to guess, but, yeah.
Any other questions? All right. Next is discussion of budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2024, 2025. Jason?
But,
Oh,
can we flip those? Yep.
oh, okay, we're going to go to personnel, sorry. Jason, just, yeah, on deck, on deck. Stand by. All right, we have Laura Grant, who is our HR coordinator, human resources coordinator, who put in
For your mind.
hundreds of hours of work getting this personnel policy updated to where it needed to be. There was lots of federal changes, federal laws that have changed that necessitated an update. And are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Mayor. So over the past several months, I have conducted a study of our Florence Personnel Policy Book, and a review focused on ensuring compliance with the latest federal and state mandates, addressing areas where policies required updates, and ensuring that the city remains aligned with current legal requirements. In addition to these compliance updates, I also examined ways to enhance our employee benefits package to address ongoing challenges with employee recruitment and retention. These issues have been a priority for the city, and it's crucial that we continue to evolve our policies to remain competitive in this labor market. Some of the key updates to the personnel policy I'll go through here with you. These first ones are going to be more to ensure compliance with federal and state law. And those updates will include updates to the equal opportunity and the ADA policies. The first thing that we did was we updated the equal opportunity policy to include a clear explanation of retaliation. And then with the reasonable accommodation policy that we had, we renamed it the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and Reasonable Accommodation Policy. The previous personnel policy, like I said, had a reasonable accommodation policy, but we expanded it to include an explanation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we transferred that policy from the general benefits section of the handbook to the equal opportunity section of the handbook. We felt that this was important as reasonable accommodation is mandated by Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it ensures equal opportunity and access for those with disabilities, unless, of course, it creates an undue hardship for the city. And you'll see there we did also add that explanation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The next policy that we worked on was the harassment and complaint procedure policy. We expanded the explanation of unlawful harassment and sexual harassment and emphasized that the city prohibits retaliation against individuals who exercise their rights under anti-discrimination laws. We also updated the internal complaint procedure to allow for more open communication. We replaced the previous procedure with a more open procedure. The new complaint procedure allows someone who feels they may have been discriminated against to speak with any member of management with whom they feel comfortable bringing such a complaint. We felt this is important because we want everyone to feel comfortable with who they're speaking with, so that we make sure that if there are any issues going on, that, we will hear about those. We also updated the review steps to include human resources in the initial review process, and included in the policy verbiage that states if the complaint involves one of the individuals in the review appeal process, the department head, human resources coordinator, city administrator, or the mayor, that individual will be excluded from handling the complaint to ensure impartiality and fairness. The next addition to the policy was the Kentucky Pregnant Workers Act and the Lactation Accommodation Policy. The Kentucky Pregnant Workers Act is mandated by KRS 344.030 to 344.110 and prohibits employment discrimination in relation to an employee's pregnancy, childbirth, or related condition. The addition of the Lactation Accommodation Policy is to comply with the Providing Urgent Maternal Protections, or the PUMP Act, and that is a federal act. The PUMP Act requires a reasonable amount of break time and a clean private space for lactating workers to express milk for up to 1 year following the birth of their child. Another update that we made was to the Kentucky Public Pension Authority Alternative Sick Leave Program that we participate in. The Alternative Sick Leave Program allows a county employees retirement system or CERS employer to compensate an employee for unused sick leave upon retirement. The updated policy allows for more flexibility by giving retiring employees options as to how they will appropriate the accrued unused sick leave payout. This will ensure that the retiring employee can decide on the most advantageous use of those funds as it pertains to their pension. And then some of the policies that we updated for our time off policies, and these were really to help with our retention and recruitment strategies, and just to give, just to kind of enhance our employees' experience here at the City of Florence. So the first was our holidays. We added 3 additional federal holidays, and those will be Juneteenth, Columbus Day, and then New Year's Eve, and this will align us with most local counties and cities in northern Kentucky. We added an additional 24 hours of APL for all full-time employees. Sick leave, we had 2 sick leave policies, so what we looked at was to standardize those policies so that everyone will receive the same amount of sick leave accrual. A pregnancy and parental leave policy is going to allow for up to 6 weeks of unpaid leave for full-time employees. Generally, pregnancy and parental leave is covered under the Family Medical Leave Act, but some employees are not covered under FMLA. If they have not worked here for 12 months, they would not be covered. So we felt that it was important to offer them unpaid leave for up to 6 weeks. And then we also added an adoption leave policy. This is actually a pursuant to KRS 377.015. And upon written request, every employee is entitled to an unpaid leave of absence not to exceed 6 weeks to adopt a child under the age of 10. We feel that these time off policies are family-friendly, especially the adoption and the parental. They're family-friendly policies that will give parents time to bond with their new child and adjust to their new family situation. And we also feel that the flexibility and family-friendly policies are essential to cultivating an atmosphere where employees can thrive professionally without sacrificing family obligations. And we also did add a civil leave policy. How we updated this was it already included a jury duty policy. We updated the court appearance policy, so it was expanded to include leave for an employee involved in a personal case as either plaintiff or defendant, or in a suit not resulting from duties performed on behalf of the city. And then we added a voting leave policy, which is pursuant to KRS 118.035, which allows a voter to take up to 4 hours off work without pay to vote. Some additional policy updates are our employee enrichment program. We increased funding for the tuition assistance plan. We're now offering a reimbursement to a maximum of $5,250 per employee per fiscal year. This rate is the current exclusion rate set by the IRS under Section 127 of the Federal Tax Code. We updated our confidentiality of personnel records policy. This update includes information about the Kentucky Open Records Act and how that pertains to personnel records. It also includes information about the process for an employee to request access to their personal information and in their personnel records. We added a generative artificial intelligence policy to address the evolving landscape of technology. This policy states that employees will need to discuss the parameters of AI use with their supervisor. They can't use city credentials to create an account with these technologies, and no proprietary information can be entered into these platforms. We also added a Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act policy, which is COBRA. This policy states that we comply with federal regulations under the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act and provide employees with and eligible dependents the opportunity to continue health insurance coverage at group rates where the coverage would otherwise cease. And then we also updated our temporary modified light duty policy. We separated that from the workers' compensation policy. We felt this was important because it would include those who were not injured on the job. And our temporary modified light duty policy is intended to facilitate an employee's return to work as soon as possible after an illness or injury, and to accommodate employees who cannot, due to illness, injury, pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, fulfill the essential functions of their usual job. And those are the updates that we made to the personnel policy. Is there any questions on that?
Anyone have any questions?
Laura, who in the administration did you work with on updating these?
We met with every department head. We had several meetings with each department head individually. We had group meetings, so it was a group effort.
Any other questions?
If an employee of the city has a child, do they already get paid leave under the short-term disability?
They do have access to short-term disability if it's voluntary. So if they don't have short-term disability or did not sign up for it, then they would not be paid. But yes, they would be paid under short-term disability. It's 60% of their income.
Under the adoption, why is it under 10?
That is just the standard that the state set. So it wasn't anything that I just basically copied the statute that was set by the state.
Does that include fostering children or just an official
There
legal
are-
adoption?
They're standard. So I believe if the child was already in your care in your foster, or you were fostering them, you do not receive that leave pursuant to the state law. So there are regulations about the type of adoption, if it was a family member or things like that that could exclude you from that policy.
Currently, we have no policy.
We did not have a policy.
So we were not in compliance with
We
the
were not,
laws
no.
on multiple of these issues. Anyone else? So this was a large effort geared at ensuring that we do have compliance with federal and state obligations that we would have as an employer, not only as a city, but just as an employer in general. Our employees are our most valuable asset when it comes to providing the service to our residents. I think this is a important step for them to have policies that are consistent and fair and up to date and as well written as they can be. And I think it's also important that they recognize that they are valued and there are things that we can do as a council that, as far as the additional changes regarding sick payout and vacation, APL, those things are all geared. These are employee retention and recruitment issues. We are facing struggles like every employer is facing. We are facing struggles at attracting and retaining workforce. And this is just a first step of what we need, and it's a bigger conversation. It's definitely something that I know that Laura worked a long time on with the department heads, and they're in their front lines with their people, and this is the changes that they recommend. So I endorse their changes that they've brought forward, and I hope that you will consider this is a good step for updating our personnel policies. Does anyone else have any?
Well, in the paperwork, I didn't hear us go over this, and maybe I missed it. The dollar amount for these changes?
Yeah, I'll go through that during our budget amendment discussion coming up next.
Any other discussion? All right, good segue. Jason, do you want to
Very
do the
good.
budget
Thanks
discussion?
for that, Leslie. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, could you get the next slide, please? Okay, so I'll start with sort of an update on where we're at through 5 months of this fiscal year. For the budget amendment, the beginning fund balance has been updated with our audit results, which John came in and discussed a few weeks ago. Everybody should have a hard copy of the audit. So through October 2024, we're on track to meet or exceed budget projections or revenue projections for payroll, occupational license, and insurance premium taxes. I just took a glimpse at the November numbers, quite strong. So from a collection standpoint, we're in a good place. Also, for me, coming in during property tax season, bit of a baptism by fire with all the property tax collections coming in, but we've had a quite strong few months here with more to come in December. Next slide, please. So talking about the amendment itself, so the vast majority of this amendment comes from capital rollovers from previous fiscal years, mostly last fiscal year, so over 15 million in the general fund alone. For some of the other funds, the infrastructure fund, we have the Center Street sidewalk and Weaver Road sidewalk projects, in addition to highway street repairs and storm sewer improvements, which is over 2 million in rollovers from previous year's budget. And then we have a $2.5 million transfer from the general fund to municipal aid to cover the ARPA street projects, which I think have been discussed previously. So those are our rollovers and transfers. Next slide, please. And then finally, so looking at the incremental impacts based on a number of different items here. So starting with a couple increases in capital projects, as well as operating expenditures for the remainder of the fiscal year. So this covers police, fire, public services, and projects. So around $300,000 increase. I went into a bit more detail in the memo here, but I met with each of the department heads to take a look at, line by line in the budget. Okay, where are we at so far during the fiscal year? Where do we expect to be by the end of the year? And for me, my first budget cycle going through this, want to get everyone in a good place where we feel that, we're going to be able to come in under budget in all of our different items here. So that $300,000 is to ensure that we're not busting specific line items, and we're not having to worry about at the end of the year, hey, we're coming in well over a budget in this area. We didn't plan properly for that. So again, I would point you to the memo for more detail, but that's kind of where we're at on that first bullet point there. For the authorized positions and pay plans, the budget impact for the admin department there is around $80,000 for the remainder of this fiscal year. For me in the finance department, we are extending an offer to one of our finance clerks to come back and be our staff accountant. So that was part of that pay plan, authorized positions and pay plan. So, because that was passed, we're able to hire a new person to come back and join our back office finance team. That's a huge win for our department. And with that, we'll have to look at bringing in a new clerk and do some other personnel actions as well. But the overall impact of that of that ordinance is around $80,000
And that was for the open records clerk
as well. Yes, correct. Thank you. Okay, so to Leslie's question, and this is where, frankly, I think we'll need a bit more data over the coming months to see what the true cost of these personnel policies will be to the city. But sitting with my accountant and Josh and some other folks, we came up with around a $400,000 annual max impact for mostly the 24 hours of APL. So that's where the biggest incremental budget impact will come from. So $200,000 estimated for the remainder of this fiscal year. And, that's something that I'll keep close tabs on going forward as to, hey, is this policy update, is 200 per 6 months, is that a good estimate, a poor estimate? So that's something that I'll keep you, the city council, in touch with. Because frankly, we're doing something that we haven't done in a bit here. So kind of showing my cards that, hey, we'll need more data to look at this, but that's our estimate for the remainder of this fiscal year. So all in all, the total incremental budget impact for the remainder of this fiscal year is around $600,000. I would say that based on the revenues I've seen and also, frankly, how some of our other budget areas are doing, the golf course has had a terrific summer. I think there are a lot of growth items here that I'm not really covering in this budget amendment that show that the city is in a quite healthy financial position. I think John Chamberlain came in and said that as well. It was very clear about that. So while we are, adding some costs to the budget here with these items, in my mind, it'll put us in a good place going into the budget workshop in March so that we're able to make good projections for the coming fiscal year. So I think that's all I really had. I'm happy to take any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
This might be stupid, but how do you add 3 holidays and without increasing the budget for that? Are they unpaid holidays?
Their pay plan doesn't change, they just don't have to come to work that day.
Yeah, we looked at it, that's a good question, it's not a stupid question. We looked at it as a loss of productivity rather than an incremental cost impact to the city. I think, again, similar to the APL impact, if we see that that's not the case, I will definitely come back and update you on that. But for us, Juneteenth, for example, my former company, we had Juneteenth off, we just didn't work. It was typically in the middle of the week in June. To me, and some other folks we talked to, that's not a real cost impact on the city. It's a paid holiday, but it's just, you're not coming into work that day. So you're losing productivity, right? So if I'm running payroll that day, I have to run it the next day, and maybe I have to push some things down the road to make it meet my schedule. But I think, to answer your question, we didn't see it as a huge cost impact.
Any other questions?
I can see what you're saying in regard to that, but with our police and fire department, we still have to have people on duty.
Yeah.
How do we work through that?
Yeah, so that, again, I think we need more data to see what the unscheduled impact will be, how covering those shifts will work, because, these guys are experts at doing that. But I understand that there will be, my thought on that is it'll be marginal at most. Again, if we see that that is not the case, we'll have to adjust the budget accordingly. But just looking at the data on previous pay periods that had holidays versus ones that didn't, we didn't see a huge cost impact.
And Chief, just make sure I don't want to make this synopsis, but your people are 24/7. So if they work on Christmas, they just take their Christmas on another day. It's kind of like a floating day.
Correct.
Right?
Their
So-
holiday is going into their APL, their regular vacation time and stuff like that. Because we got to work the holidays, no matter what.
So it just would be a different day they would take off.
Yeah, and I would say Laura and Josh spent an incredible amount of time working through the intricacies of police and fire versus admin, and PS has a bit of both, right? So a lot of time was spent on, looking at these different items. So kudos to Laura and Josh here, for sure.
And I think we bring this to you in the backdrop of our recent audit presentation, who echoed how strong our financial position is. And really, the single biggest investment we need to make, in my opinion, is in our employees so that they can provide service to our residents. That is what their job is to provide service to the residents. So the residents are the ultimate winners here if we can invest in our employees.
Yeah, I think to add to that, Mayor, anecdotally, I went to Target on Thanksgiving and saw 4 police cruisers, saw 2 Florence fire trucks. It's just kind of amazing to see the work that these men and women do while the rest of us are enjoying our holidays. So I think we did everything with that in mind. And hopefully, again, this is, like the mayor said, it's the first step. We want to continue this conversation to increase our retention. In the Army, we use the term called readiness. I think that's applies to everyone here as well. So sort of pontificating a bit, but that's my 2 cents on where we're at.
Any other discussion? All right. There is no need for a closed session?
Real quick,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to make the statement that I looked up the roll call vote for that House Bill 581. Well, so again, elections have consequences, and this government overreach on this bill is significant for our city. So just to let you guys know, our local representatives, John Schickel voted yes, Kim Banta voted yes, Stephanie Dietz, yes, Steve Doan, yes, Steve Rawlings, who's about to be our state senator, voted yes, and Mary Ann Proctor voted yes to implement these changes.
Thank you for that information, Leslie. Anyone else have anything else? All right, if not, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Carroll? Second, Mr. Nguyen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.